The Ring of Duin, Book 6, Rising Tide and Bloodied Bride. Matured, great oaks stood, sentinels silent marking the end of the mountain path, their boughs joined as a great archway, the wide green lands beyond. The early sun flared their leaves into true color that they glowed as stars, gold and green, bark not yet twisted with age but straight and true, reaching for the sky with power which belongs only to the young, yet with the certainty of those who are no longer a child. Roots dug endlessly into the layer of years, past the turmoil of recent times and into those calmer. Such is the proper course of lives through time, and the virtuous only grow stronger as the running river of time carries them. Lives of dignity and virtue last longer than those of decrepit vice. These of such good would live for 10 generations of man. Aethelwald and Ceallach passed beyond the gateway of leaves and into Ilulean, their search begun. To the north they went, to the lands of the Un Goll, to await the 2 captains a short while. Yet as they turned, Aethelwald looked back to the mountains and spied a darkness hiding behind the peaks, a darkness no light could dispel. Their path to the north of Ilulean was quickly made. They lived in the wild and lit no fire at night, that none might mark their passing. They hunted small game and left behind no trace. So great the need for secrecy that Ceallach wore rags over his armor and hid his face with mud. The land of the Un Goll lay far from the mountains and hills, a flat place of many waters, fresh and clean, cold in winter, a land of fogs, where only the noon sun can burn away the mist and reveal the true color of the flowers, more beautiful than elsewhere in Ilulean. For their petals do not give themselves to a single color, but rather they gather many from the earth and wear them as they dance slowly in the winds beneath the low-lying fogs. As a people the Un Goll are loud and eager, short yet strong. Frequently they raid other Tella in the years since the burning, as those they raided sent no pursuers into the mist for fear of losing their way. The Un Goll marched with the western Tellachs to face Ceallach in his great victory, and again with the pact of many which brought ruin to Salam. They fell as all fell in that time after, and bands of close kin wandered the mists prepare to do violence to their kinsmen. To that land came the pair, wearied by the vast distance travelled in short time. They settled at a small stream, drinking deep from its waters. Here they relaxed their hiding, keeping fire at all times of day and hunting larger game. They hoped for the arrival of the otter and sparrow, but knew in their hearts that only by grace could they be victorious against that darkness. Hunting alone often after their coming, Aethelwald learned to track his game through the thickest mists, that the smallest signs were not unnoticed by him. He might find a hart over hard stone, or track fowl through the air. Hunting through heath and moor, Aethelwald went with spear and bow through the morning mists, the tracks of a hare in his sight. For hours he followed its trail until the sun threw aside the mist cloak, and the beauty of the Un Goll lands was revealed, and his work made simpler. He followed the trail with much swiftness until he found his quarry and discovered his hunt spoiled, for the hare lay in the maw of another, a black wolf, its lifeblood wasted and body limp. Golden eyes watched Aethelwald, curious to know if this challenger came to steal its prize, and for a moment the pair prepared for sudden violence. But the time broke, and the golden rings blinked before running across meadowed fields. Aethelwald watched the beast run, cutting through the flowers, knowing that he would not ever catch it, and there he saw a party of men moving through the sea of color. They were mean men, 9 in number, cruel iron in their hands flashed as they beheaded the flowers, without care for the death of such beauty. These were men with violence in their hearts, prepared to bring some fresh pain to the world of men, and so he hid himself until they passed and followed, though alone. 4 leagues through the flowers they went, striking the bulbs, the dead left in a long path behind them. Aethelwald stalked after, bow readied, until at last a farm rose from the horizon, and the men ceased slaying flowers and prepared to slay men. They spread themselves into a wide crescent and descended upon the home, blood in the air, cries of man and beast. Fire broke its bonds quickly and consumed the home. Aethelwald had followed closely, and as they descended upon their foe, he too went into battle, hiding no longer but standing proud among fallen flowers, loosing arrows into the backs of the men, wounding 2 and killing another. He charged with spear in hand, arriving as a sudden fury just as they who lived in the home burst forward with hatchet and hoe to give desperate battle. Felling quickly his first foe, Aethelwald moved to the next, that he might aid those men who defended their home. His new foe swung a sword, but Aethelwald was faster, snake-like, drawing blood thrice from his legs that the foe fell, and as he stumbled the spear found his heart. Of them who defended their home 2 fell swiftly, having not true weapons, yet 3 stood still with fire in their hearts. 4 foes stood unharmed, and they fell upon them eager for blood, which already stained their clothes and ran over the earth, darker than the flowers. Another of the farmers fell to this effort, and the others were pressed against their burning home as Aethelwald rushed into the fray, fighting as the otter in water, the haft of his spear more dangerous than the blade, catching the swords and cudgels before whirling to strike. What hope do mortal men have when faced with one raised by great teachers? For he was swift as water, cunning as the fox, and by careful practice stronger than they could dare to be. 2 fell to Aethelwald with ease, and fearing this sudden storm the others fled, abandoning their wounded. Aethelwald pursued them not. He desired not their blood, but rather to safeguard those they desired to harm. Of these, 2 yet remained of the living, though one was wounded in a final exchange of blows. Falling to the earth exhausted, they rested as weary dogs do, greedily taking in the air until their hearts were once more theirs, and then they submitted to the questionings of Aethelwald. The wounded spoke first, clutching his arm as blood flowed from the wound above his eye. I am Bregadecht, and this is my brother Yollard. In this home we lived with our cousins Breki, Keller, and Austin. It was by our own hands built, but 2 months past. Here did we hope to live, for we have left that people who formerly were our kin. The land about has yet to be plowed, and our beasts have little to eat, but we did not despair, for this home was for us a new beginning. I see on you no dark stain of hate, and wonder how in this age you have remained aloof from it. 2 of my cousins joined me in that terrible war which ended in so much fire. We returned from the place of ashen waters different men, a taint which lies on the other Un Goll. We returned to that village which had from the time of our oldest ancestors been home to us, that which lies from here but 2 leagues distant. Mean men of mean spirit returned, who had left in such pride. And though for a time we could rejoice in our homes again, our hatred for the beast that is man festered in our hearts. This land shattered, and so did we. At first no longer heeding the writ of our Ceallach, and refusing to take up arms at his call, we ceased to aid our neighbors. Fields lay fallow, and livestock starved. My brothers and cousins were well liked, yet we fled here from a quick betrayal. There was fire in our village, and we scrambled against the blaze. And though with many hands victory was won, all people soon began laying accusations, searching for the fire starter. My cousin Brecky was discovered with a skewbald mare, which had bolted from the burning homes, and they gave him sentence of death, all bonds of kinship forgotten. But we four did not abandon our ties, and from them ran. These that lie dead here came from our home. Each name is known to us. 5 I did fight beside at El Salam. What an end for close kin. His spirit left him, and he died without further word. Aethelwald laid him to rest. Yet as he did, the sound of further violence came to them, and Aethelwald prepared for the return of the attackers. But about the building came Ceallach, sword glistening with blood. He had followed Aethelwald in his hunt, and spoke as he reached him. A fierce warrior are you, Aethelwald Etheldorson, laying low your foe with such speed. For your skill in war I am proud. Yet you have fought too swiftly, too powerfully, and the darkness which hunts you might learn of this one battle. I know you have no love for killing, and would not chase after men who have fled. Yet we cannot permit any word of our whereabouts. For even though they knew not your name, the strength and ferocity of your blade is enough to bring him that follows to this place. You must know how eagerly he waits for word of our passing. I have slain those who fled and those left wounded, finishing the work of the day. This day shall remain ours. Of this man yet among the living, I trust that your aid is enough to ensure his silence, else this day shall grow all the darker. We have tarried here long enough, and were our friends victorious, they would have long since found us. They are dead, fallen to the beast. It is time for us to search the far fields of Eoland for the restoration of our people, and by our labor shall freedom from war return to this forsaken land. Come, our path is calling. He turned to go, yet Aethelwald moved not. Falling to his knees, he offered prayers to his teachers, rising only when thanks had been given. Yet as he prepared to leave, he looked to Yallard, who lost all his kin, and the pain of Aethelwald's own heart called for him not to abandon one who had lost as he had, and he spoke. Sorrow fills me at the news of their deaths, yet it is that which seemed most likely to come from that high place. Now again the hunting horn sounds, and we must fly before our scent reaches our hunter. Yet we need not journey alone. The time has come to fortify ourselves with allies, as you yourself have sworn, that we might not be caught unawares by him. Come, Yallard, we will not leave you in this place of fire and death. You shall join our band as a full-blood brother. Think of how many lie in anguish throughout Eoland, how many are alone, and have known the violence which reigns over this stricken land. They are our kin, and we shall not allow them to suffer longer. Come, brother. He gathered the dead, raising a howl over the cousins, and a second over those he had slain. Only then did the group leave the mist-bound lands of the Un Goll to search Eoland for the blood of the High Ceallach. 3 years they searched. 3 years they wandered through all Eoland and all its peoples. Yet no rumor of Ilulean came to them. No man knew her likeness. Wrong were they to ask of rumor from man, for had they asked the birds, they would have learned all, for they watched for her coming. For 2 years Aethelwald and Ceallach watched every shadow for signs of the hunter, and took care that their band would seem as any others which roamed the land, as in that time of death many found food and gold fighting others. Slowly Aethelwald brought to him many disparate people, and gave them a tella forged not from blood but kindness. 150 followed him and named him Ceallach, of which number a full 100 were warriors. These had not been great when still with their blood, but were made so by Aethelwald, for though he had seen fewer than 20 winters, he had been made wise in the art of war, and so made his warriors as he himself was made, and they were fierce. They served as hired men for the many petty Ceallachs, and were well rewarded. The weak Aeolish kings desired them over the Daona warriors who came each summer to serve in greater numbers. For though mongrels, they were Aeolish. In the 3rd year of flight, Aethelwald grew less cautious of disguise. No word had ever come of the hunter, no rumor or whisper carried by hushed voices, and that darkness began to be forgotten. Still disguised was his name, for fear he would be slain by those who were haunted by their own hands. Aethelwald was a man 17 years of age, and was known as a great captain through all Ilulean by the name of Orhan of the Un Goll. Victory was all he had known, thrice defeating hosts twice his own in size, and thrice defeating wayward bands which sought only pillage and plunder. Thrice he burned the villages of thieves and usurpers, and thrice he had defeated proud Daona warriors who fought for foul men. At every field he did demand his men raise tombs for those who fell on either side, regardless of how fierce the war, even for the Daona, though they knew not this practice. This earned him the goodwill of all men, even those he fought, and while he was Orhan, he had no foe in all Ilulean save for the Daona, who worshipped dark gods and cared not for his kindness. The warband was named the Stags, and Aethelwald chose the name with care, for he desired not to be named for any beast which hunts its prey, nor would they be named for a creature which scavenges its food, for they came not to pick the bones of Ilulean. Thus they were named for the beast of Malach, which by prong and hoof does guard its home, and they were warriors of the high Ceallach, easing the pain of the land. In those 3 years the land began to calm as the many small kingdoms were brought together by axes forged across the sea, and old borders were slowly restored as villages which once bayed for blood, and neighbors who learned to fear beyond the walls of their home found safety in trust once more. Yet still were those Ceallachs petty in their reach compared to their ancestors. Greatest among the Ceallachs was Dain, born of the wee Arden, yet had grown close to those Daona, so that many ships came to his lands in the summer, and his name he took from them. A foolish man was he. With their power he usurped his Ceallach, and conquered many of the wee Arden, so that few lived beyond his reach. Many petty kings about his border asked his counsel, and gave him gifts, for which the Daona by his side proclaimed Dain high Ceallach of Ilulean, and demanded oaths of fealty from the Aeolish. Golden gifts he did give the Daona for their friendship, which was the only desire of that people, and in such numbers they came that the Ceallach was made to send out his taxmen for all they could find, and reducing the people to using silver. From constant acclaim he became a proud man, who held himself equal to the mighty kings before, and the fool named himself Malach. He desired to own that which had brought ruin to another. The prize refused the hawk king's blood, and so sent word to the wee Agla demanding that self-same daughter who inflamed Adelwitz's heart to doom. The maiden Shirday was 14 years of age, and from the time of the burning her father, the Ceallach Rollalach Gwynir Dwi, had kept his children under watch, that none might ever again take them from him. When messengers came, he refused them without consideration, and brought his people to arms, that they would not again be betrayed. It was to the wee Agla that Aethelwald and his warriors came, proud and ready warriors who sought to enter the service of that Ceallach. Yet in secret there was another purpose. Since the breaking, the wee Agla had turned from Ilulean, having few deals with those beyond their kin, and though there was much killing within their tella, for the war bred there the same resentment it raised elsewhere, the fury which they had felt when the daughters were taken kept them loyal to Rollalach. Any man might slay his own brother, yet both would praise the Ceallach for his just anger and give gifts to him. It was in this chaos that Aethelwald hoped to penetrate the mistrustful land and aid Ceallach to search there unhindered. The band came just as Aethelwald's had come before, marching in ordered rows through the forest and fen, coming to the home of the Ceallach in bright day, taking no care to hide their presence. In this perfect order they waited for the Ceallach to greet them, marking not the passing of hours, unwearied as they were refused any message or greeting, until as night fell Aethelwald told those who were not warriors to make camp and prepare food. This they did, and they brought soup to his warriors still in ordered rows, who ate as they stood. It was well into the night, his men asleep on their feet, when the doors opened and the retinue of the Ceallach came forth prepared for battle, their king in mail, bright with moonlight. And that king spoke. Is this the hour of which I have dreamt since the day I first recovered my daughter? Well, I have prepared for this. I have seen your face before, O fell captain of men. It is a face which I hate. Fools you must be, for your coming was not known to us. Yet in these many hours which you have stood here we prepared stout defence of the doors, that even with 1,000 your victory would only come by fire, burning the timbers to ashen wind. I know this. I have seen it. I watched as cowards and thieves by desperate effort refused me my children. I saw as they burned beneath my wrath. You have not surrounded my home, and so did not stop my Ceallach coming to my aid. And the longer you waited, the less you could take from my home. So, dread warriors so bold, have you come at the behest of that Daona puppet, to take from me that which I could never surrender? My daughter is no prize or jewel to be worn about his finger, and I shall slay any man who knows this not. Thrice I have repelled his messengers, now thrice I shall defeat his bandit hordes. The moon is sinking, the sun soon rising. Let us begin shedding blood before the night leaves us, for thieves die best in the night. I will wait no longer. Aethelwald knew the Ceallach for his part in the death of his brothers, but hated him not. He waited until Rollalach finished his talking, and with sweetness he addressed him. No, great Ceallach, we have not come for your daughters, your wife, or your cousins of remoter degrees. We have come here to serve, if that be desirable. I am Orhan of the far land of the Un Goll, and I have led this warband to your lands, seeing that war is coming, of a sort which Ilulean has not seen in many years, where Tella shall battle Tella in conflict renewed, united under their kings. The Ceallach Tordagian will wage war for a bride, slaying many men at the altar of capricious greed. He has abandoned us by taking the name of his masters and giving endless coin to them. We would see him denied in bringing deeper into Ilulean those shipmen who do not desire right things. He has conquered his kin at the edge of a blade and brought them to serve him. War is coming, and it is coming for you. You have retained your rule through the damaged years. Though many of your Tella hold you as their Ceallach, they do battle each other. King of a divided people, the coming battle will wash over you unless you bring them together. A man who loves his king, yet will not obey his peace, cannot guard him when war comes. Ceallach, war is coming if you again refuse Tordagian. Blood is waiting to be shed, and we offer ours. For we have chosen to serve you, not for the coin which the other gives so freely, but because you are still Eolish, and we would serve the free, not those who abandon us to the false power granted by their masters, the shipmen. We cannot serve him, and so would serve you. For if he is denied here, he will not become High Ceallach. We will fight this war before its burden is placed on the weak Eolish. Give us command to be your faithful friends, else turn us from you should you still fear us, and weather the coming storm as best you can. King, command us." The Ceallach could trust no man, living so long in his fear, and so despite the fair words of Orhan, he feared some deeper plot. Yet he could not turn away help so freely given. Certain was conflict coming with Tordagian, and perhaps keeping them he could discover their aim. So he spoke. "I give no coin to beggars so brazen, but ask any. I am generous when men give me their labor. If your true desire is to serve the Eolish, then there is much to do in my lands. Truly it is said that I have little power over those who name me their king, though fiercely they do rush to my defense. I would require them to prepare for battle and strengthen their Tella. For this I need the strength to bring the unruly within my peace. Go from this place to the edge of the Wee Agla lands where two families dwell, which both proclaim me Ceallach, but fall on the other with sword. The families are those of Moral and Rohan, proud men who I once saw feast at my table in better times. Their lands lie along the path which Tordagian is sure to come, should he seek his most base desire. Those lands must stand beside me if this Tella is to still stand proud. Bring them to my grace, and I shall know your good intentions." So the Ceallach retreated back to his hall, his guard still wary. But Aethelwald at the conclusion of his speech gave command to break camp. With such speed they broke, warriors and women, that they were under well-ordered march before the doors were closed. Aethelwald took his band up the road for a short while, until he was certain they were not being followed, and then allowed them their night's rest. He himself gave the first watch with his more veteran warriors. Dawn came, and word spread through the Wee Agla that warriors who needed no rest nor sustenance had come to guard their Ceallach from the many evils which stalked the land. The legend of their king's power spread, and many began to hope that a time had come where he would lead them as he had in years past. Aethelwald and his men arrived at the wooded lands which were the border of the Wee Agla, and his band came to the village of Rohan. Their approach caused alarm, the warriors of Rohan armed, placing themselves in a shield wall against the path of Aethelwald. He viewed their battle, and drew up his men to match them, but kept his distance. He walked out between the two lines and spoke. "I understand your worries, Rohan of the Wee Agla, and hold no resentment that your warriors face me with blade in hand, though I am guest to your village, and do not raise my arms until you raised them against me. I have not come for your gold, your wives, or your livestock. What need does a true band of warriors have for any of these? I am not here as a raider, but am engaged by your Ceallach to secure the border of your Tella from sudden violence. What right have you to deny him? War comes as certain as winter, and when it does, the axemen from beyond the sea will feast in your homes and ravage this Tella. The wall which you have formed to oppose me will not stop them, it will not stop me. You are in a feud with another of your kin, who in battle would give a host equal in size to your own, yet you stand in arms against them in folly. The tide shall take you in its power and smash you against the rocks. I am come to prevent this, to remedy your hatred and return you to your rightful place within your Tella. Refuse me, you have this right, but then I shall go to Moral, securing his faithfulness. I am to secure this land to the will of the Ceallach, and if this must be done with blood, it will be so." He returned to his men, and together they stood there awaiting response. Yet none came forth to treat with him. So Aethelwald broke his wall and made to leave that place, giving order to go to the village of Moral, at which sight the shield wall of Rohan broke, and Aethelwald was invited to speak in private. In the mead hall he met their chiefs, and asked to hear in full the cause of their strife. A chief in patterned red cloth spoke. "We are of the Wee Agla, yet are also kin of Rohan, so we must hold both these ties up to be true, faithful Eolish. So we have done, For we are afraid of that which shall happen should we become without a people. Faithful to our Ceallach were we in all things. When Ceallach king was slain, we did not abandon our Ceallach, as so many had in Artella. And that the cause we hold will be seen for its natural righteousness, I must say the kin of Moral were loyal also, causing no harm to their kin in that time. When the thief came and stole from our king his children, we numbered in the host. Each night we assaulted the walls, as Ceallachs argued with mead in hand. What more proof of loyalties is there than that battle, when for the sake of 3 children we slew so many more beneath the burning walls? We came home from that place, from the beautiful waters turned to ashen mud. We were hollow men. Rohan was a good man, well known to all the surround as honorable, who with measured speech guided his family profitably. He returned as we did, cursing the action of his limbs. But where we found things unchanged, he discovered his wife died from illness so soon after his departure. After the proper mourning, he went to our neighbors to find a wife. He chose Arael, sister of Moral, and she chose him. The brother objected, desiring to give her to another, and so she fled to her love. They were wed, and soon she was with child, a family destined for happiness, but for Moral, who as a thief in the night came stealing to our homes. With dagger he slew the sleeping Rohan, and meant to spirit away his sister from those who were by right her family. But she raised the alarm, and we came sword in hand to deliver her. Moral met his end swiftly, but the shock of so much violence and loss caused Arael to deliver her child too soon. She perished, but her son did not. The child is now 5, kind and gentle, named Ronorel. The kin of Moral demand that we give him, that the mother was stolen from them, and by the right of blood he is theirs. But this was not so, and between these 2 kindred groups there never again shall be any peace. Aethelwald listened to the tale, carefully weighing the words, and at its end, when the chiefs desired to hear his judgment, he rose and went to his men. When they followed, he gave them command to follow him unarmed, guaranteeing their safety by solemn oath. He led them from their homes to the village of their foe, and with booming voice called all the kin of Moral to come before him. They came, and when they saw their foe delivered to them they gave a cheer, but Aethelwald silenced them, raising his sword against them. Then he called for the son Ronorel, and together they stepped alone between the foes, and he spoke. Enough. Enough war, enough hate, enough violence, enough death. Look at what has become of you, you who were once numbered among men. 2 men and 1 woman have died. What justice is there in continuing the slaughter? Let the dead lie and permit vengeance to die. For vengeance is only proper when set against those beyond your blood, not your kin. Both your peoples are of the wee Agla. You are brothers of the great Eolish family. Will you give your life in blind rage that others might rule the destiny of this child? If the lives of many men are worth sacrifice that the child would be raised by your chief, would it not be better to do so without kinslaying? If not, then I shall go from this place with him, and deliver him to the Ceallach's house, to be raised by him that you consider a just ruler, that you shall no longer have cause to war against each other. Choose to surrender either your vengeance or your blood. Many were outraged, but by his command the kin of Rohan were unarmed, and in surprise of his coming the kin of Moral were also, cowed by the force of arms. The families made peace under the gaze of Aethelwald, their chiefs marking a field stone with blood in oath, and Aethelwald gave warning he would send for word of the boy each month, and should he come to harm, the Ceallach would visit them in fury. Aethelwald and his warband returned to the hall of Rolaloch in victory, delivering the border secured to the Ceallach. Many gifts the king gave the great captain, and feasted him for a fortnight. Yet his suspicions were not abated, and during the feast his spies watched the warband, but discovered naught, for loyal men know when they are tested and do not surrender to prying questions. At the end of the feasting, the Ceallach Rollalach gave the stags further test, to bring more of his people back to his peace. For many months Aethelwald and his men wandered the lands of the wee Agla, as their captain by his wisdom did end the many battles fought each day. And as he did, Ceallach searched for signs of Ilulean. Swiftly were the lands returned to the control of the Ceallach, and as his power grew, so did his fears of Aethelwald wane, as his spies came singing as songbirds praises of the captain. Yet as he came to esteem the young warrior as the best of men, all his retreating fears gathered into one last redoubt of hate, which could not be vanquished by any glad tidings. So the Ceallach, even as he raised Aethelwald above all others, contrived a plot to discern at long last the captain's true value, that he might allay the last meanness of his heart. He called the young captain to him on the occasion of further victory, and after feasting him again, gave to him a great task. For rather than wait for the hammer blow to fall upon his people, he would strike first. Tordagian weighed heavy on his mind in all hours of the day, an army preparing for war. He gave the youth the task of murder, to slay the fearsome Ceallach before he was prepared, and thus deliver the wee Agla from war. And should Aethelwald succeed, a great prize would be delivered him, higher in renown than any gift of gold which could be heaped upon him. The Ceallach Rollalach was resolved in his heart to give his daughter Shirday, at once desiring the victorious man his son and guard, yet also to give proof to his own heart that he was not ungrateful to him that had restored his power, to finally lay to rest that fear. None of this he told to Aethelwald, merely commanding his success with the promise of great reward. Aethelwald was no murderer, having never slain without battle, and the promise of reward tainted the action in his mind. Yet he felt he could not refuse the final request of one whom he had tricked to his own ends. His men gathered. He led them some leagues from the hall of the Ceallach, and there set his camp. They were eager for further victory, for further praise, further feasting, and knew their captain would deliver these. Yet order to break camp did not come in a fortnight, nor did they see sign of their captain, who would not leave his tent. Neither would Ceallach or Iullard, who were permitted into the tent, give answer when questioned, and when the men came to the tent to discover the cause of their delay, they were turned away. Inside his tent Aethelwald wasted, refusing meals, turning in his mind the necessity to take the life of one who had given him no harm. To take the life of a man who was engaged in murder and pillage is just. He had himself done so many times before, but Aethelwald had never killed with silent malice or turned his power against but one man. He had never before planned the death of a man, and so his spirit suffered from the weight. In battle he would fight, but to kill outside of battle held in it no glory, no justice. As the fortnight passed, he only fell further into despair. No word from Ceallach or Iullard could shake his being. Outside his men grew restless, not from anger or desire for wealth, but from fear that their captain, who they held as a Ceallach though they were not bound by any blood, was in mortal peril, and that little was done to save him. They feared that when he died there would be naught to hold them together, and they would drift apart as seeds in the wind, to become bloodless vagrants outcast from all warmth. They desired knowledge of their captain's plan, how they would defeat the tyrant who turned from the Eolish. Outside they gathered and spoke in whispered tones of their desperation, or prayed for the sight of their captain, but it did not come. At last they could wait and wonder no longer, but gathered their courage to enter the tent, first alone, then in larger groups. Together they went into his tent, hoping to discover the cause of delay. Yet when they did, they wished they had done otherwise, for their chief lay upon his bed with heavy sweat on his brow, Ceallach watching over him, and the stags fell to the earth, bewailing their misfortune. Ceallach did not remove them, in hopes that their love for their captain would rouse him from his fever, yet still he lingered in his malaise. Aethelwald's warband moved not for a month full, but events in Eoland did not stand still. Made bold by honeyed words and enraged by the further refusals of Rolloch, Tordagian prepared a more dangerous course. He would have as wife she who was denied to all others, and blood would be spilt to have her. What is a man compared to his desire, to his destiny? What king could be refused? He sent from his hall a band of warriors, Eolish and Daona, 500 strong, to raid the lands of the Wee Agla and bring Rolloch to supplication. This warband moved swiftly, moving in both day and night, giving the mounds of Halla wide berth. Arriving in Wee Agla land 7 days from leaving their home, and swiftly they fell to their work. Fire and slaughter ran free through villages, and many suffered. Word came to the stags. Their camp became a flurry. If their captain would not rise from his bed to join them, they would not disturb him. Yet they could not sit idle as death danced through the land which they had guarded. Into well-ordered rows they fell, prepared to leave for battle without their chief, when in a final effort they gave to Yallard the news of the war. He quickly gave this to Aethelwald, and in his eyes he saw a fire stir. So Yallard ran from the tent to the glinting rows and asked what people fell to the blades. And in the long roll of murdered men were the peoples of Rohan and Moral. This Yallard told to Aethelwald, and the fire caught hold. He rose in a fury, fever banished and doubts burned. The captain was restored. He gave the long-awaited order to break camp, and stepping from his tent for the first time in a month, discovered that his men had already prepared. Aethelwald understood their mutiny at once, and forgave his men in his heart, for it had been he who neglected his duties. In rags he stood before them, yet to the men it seemed more glorious than were he in full mail. A great cheer burst from them as their captain gave command to go to the homes of Rohan and Moral, and there to see the horror with their own eyes. They ran swift as the gale to reach the place of their first victory in the lands of the Wee Agla. Aethelwald with them riding unsteady upon a horse, his strength returning, but not yet what it had been, his eyes a cold fury. The lands which marked the edge of the Wee Agla were ablaze. Thick smoke choked the trees, the air was hateful to breathe. And as the stags went to that place which they held as an example of their goodness, where they lifted a people back to dignity, they passed many farms and villages where the dead did lie humiliated, without proper burial. Aethelwald commanded that each they found was to have a mound raised over them, and as his strength returned to him he began to raise these himself. When they came to the lands of Rohan and Moral they saw no smoke, for they had been first to face the axes, and the fires had long died out. The Daona spared none, but them they took as slaves. The dead littered the ground, and yet, when surveying the ruins of so many lives, Aethelwald saw that the battle had not been more deadly to the Wee Agla than the warriors of Tordagian. He saw clearly where shield wall had stood, where they bore axe and sword. He saw where it broke, where many men fought to stem the breach. He saw the rout and slaughter. Though the Eolish lay despoiled and unburied, he saw many weapons which came from beyond the cold sea. Their masters lay not on the earth. For the Daona burned their dead, far from the site of battle, and the presence of so many of their weapons told of the bravery the Eolish had in facing such a hardened foe. Aethelwald ordered his men to gather together the dead from the shortly united kin, and prepare them for burial, as he lighted from his horse to search for the sacred oath stone. At the stone he found the bodies of 2 chiefs of Rohan's kin and 1 of Moral's, cruelly slain as they guarded the oath, new blood over the old which sealed peace. He lifted it, though in weakened state, and carried it to the body of the young Ronarl. Then Aethelwald, son of kings, began his funeral rites. With fresh spring water he washed away the wounds. With long river reeds he lashed together a bier, that Ronarl might sleep in comfort. From the meadows of the child's home he picked strong flowers, that the rot might never come to stay. From the grasses he wove a crown for Ronarl to wear with pride. Then he lifted a bed of earth 1 rella high, and placed the bier upon this humble bed. And once solemn prayer had been said over the body, he finished raising the howe. And when the dead was buried in the earth from which he rose, Aethelwald placed the oath stone atop to forever mark the lands of the wee Agla. Thus the grave of Ronarl stands for all time. As he placed the oath stone, Aethelwald dispelled his doubts, his mind of one purpose, that his strength returned to him, and a plan for the death of Tordagian was made as he lay the stone. The graves made, he called together his men, and before them chastened his failure to act. For his own weakness many had suffered, but he would no longer delay. To Yallard he gave message for Tordagian. The others he led to the lake Dromorla, the only to lie in the lands of the wee Agla, which is but 3 miles from the hall of the Ceallach. Yallard sped from the warband when Aethelwald gave to him the message, and made the journey to the lands of the wee Arden in but 4 days. His coming was marked, and the Daona warriors captured him many leagues from the hall of Tordagian, asking for his purpose and haste. Yallard was fearless before these terrible men, without wavering answered that he was sent by the Ceallach of the wee Agla with terms for his daughter's marriage. Fortune did smile on the labor of Aethelwald, for the Daona noted not that he spoke as one of the northern Eolish, not as a southern wee Agla, and were jubilant, believing that their strength at arms had won a great war. Quickly they fell into discussing among themselves, forgetting Yallard with the prize before them. They thought of the dowry, which was sure to be given Tordagian, and how the gracious king would divide it between the many Daona warbands which gave this prize to him. That soon all the petty kings of the small Eolish would kneel before them and deliver to them gifts without going to battle. There was more which Yallard was to speak, and he told those Daona warriors that his king would also deliver 20 other daughters from noble families for the Daona chiefs to strengthen the blood of his people and secure the peace. The daughter and maiden brides would wait for Tordagian and his Daona captains upon the sacred isle of the wee Agla, Dromorla, on the next new moon, with gold for their dowry. No man would guard them, for they had been beaten in honest war, and the maidens would be prepared to wed in Daona style. His only demand was that no weapons be brought to the isle which his people held sacred. Yet should the raids on his people continue, or arms be placed on the soil of Dromorla, they would have war. This the warriors listened to in awe, for it seemed to them that all which they had desired, their war against the weak peoples of Eoland, had delivered upon that which toil and bloodshed had promised. So violent had their raid been that they did not doubt the Eolish to surrender so readily to them. They had long come to believe the Eolish to be of a soft temperament, opposed to the labor of a warrior, and so they told Yallard to go to his master while he was still in command of a free people and prepare for their coming. Then they went many leagues to the hall of Tordagian to deliver him this news, and as they went they gathered their kin to the procession until the riotous band found its way before the Ceallach of the wee Arden and proclaimed victory. Tordagian was much pleased with the tidings and asked for this messenger that he might hear them in full, but the Daona had him not. The Ceallach's joy turned to rage as easily as a bird in flight, and he brandished his sword as he cursed the Daona, naming them lazy dolts and mules, and in his heart he began to suspect a trap. Yet the Ceallach did not understand his position, for the time had long passed when he could threaten the Daona, when their numbers were few, and the proud race would not stand and be slandered when they were so many and victorious. They seized from the Ceallach his sword and stripped from him his robe, that he whimpered in fear, and they told him, "What are your words, weasel? Speak them, clear as the morning sky. Go on, does the king fear to speak in his own hall? What a mean creature he is if he cannot speak before his warriors. Far kinder it is to slay such a meek man than to let him live thinking he was the master of his own house. We gave you your crown, your feasts, and your mead. Our blood, not yours, has secured your bride. Is it proper for the horse to think himself the master when he waits bridled in the stable for the call of the man? No, such things do not belong in the world of men. This is what is to come. You will go to this sacred island and secure for us our wives. Then you shall take your place as high king of these wretched people and deliver them to our waiting arms. We shall be well fed, well housed, well married, and rich. Else your house shall burn with such a speed that in ages to come all shall wonder if ever such a weak and spineless people did walk the earth. Go saddle your horse, king, your masters are waiting. An army of Daona warriors led the sad Ceallach from his hall and to the lands of the wee Ogla, and upon entering, in good faith they halted, that only the Ceallach and chiefs of the long ships entered into the land. They saw no people, but did see many mounds, and for the first time Tordagian saw the works he had ordered, and he wept. Yet as they came to the lake Dramorla, he composed himself to seem as Malach and the Hawk King were, wise kings of the Eolish. At the shores of the lake they found boats, and saw white dresses upon the wooded isle beyond. Their lusts quelled all doubts. Swords and axes they left upon the banks as commanded, then paddled through still water to paradise. Lighting upon the shore they stowed their oars, yet found no sign of their wives waiting, and so went deeper into the sacred isle, into mists, fog, and trees. Long they walked through that alien land, unease growing in them as in the tall trees the air seemed to stifle them. More at home were the Daona aboard their ships than in the dark forests which did border their far-away home. Just as they began to doubt that the maidens were there, and the sting of betrayal wormed its way into their hearts, and fear grew that the white dress seen was that of some phantasm which the wee Ogla kept imprisoned upon the isle, for the Daona are a superstitious people who fear many things, the company came to a clearing where 21 figures in flawless white robes and veiled as maidens stood beneath a great maple tree, whose boughs were as endless hands praising the light of the sun, and whose roots drank steadily from sweet water creeks fed from rainwater pools. They were spread in a crescent, and at their center stood one whose dress was pure as fresh snows, untouched or tainted. Eagerly did the Ceallach and his masters go to them, Tordagian taking the chief figure as each of the captains pushed and shoved to select their own bride. Yet so eager were they, so commanded by their own lusts, that they saw not their brides were too large to be women. They lifted the veils of their brides and found not maidens but warriors prepared for their deaths. For neither the Daona nor Tordagian knew that the sacred isle of Dramorla is where the wee Ogla make final bloody test for their Ceallach. Blood was the nature of the isle. So from gowns and girdles came axes and daggers which sank gleefully into the unguarded flesh. Tordagian lifted the veil prepared for his bride, but found instead the face of Aethelwald, who drew his blade with such swiftness that the Ceallach with many masters could not cry aloud before he was slain, and his lifeblood mingled with the water of the creek. Ceallach too did work that day, slaying quickly him that had chosen the old warrior for his bride, and 2 more who fled. Those chiefs who had murdered or burned through Ilulean eager for prize, who thought themselves so mighty, fled as rabbits before the wolves. To the boats they ran, desperate for the safety which waters so often afforded them, but there discovered the oars missing and pursuit at their heels. Some fell to their knees as others did push to the waters, though they could not steer, paddling with their hands. These were hunted when all others were destroyed, the hidden oars brought out for the pursuit, and those that did flee died in the shallow waters before ever reaching the banks. Word never reached the waiting Daona army, for whom it seemed their captains had vanished upon an isle of strange foreign magics. Aethelwald had them buried in Aeolish style, with solemn dignity beneath the boughs of the maple tree. Then they left the isle. Once more on the soil of Eoland he spoke to his band. I chose you for this dark task, horrible and base, for I know you each to be more than mere warriors, kind and gentle in spirit. For this reason I brought you here, above 80 others who serve me. What we have done here today was not a thing proper to warriors, but this was necessary and just to end those lives which came to us this day. A warrior can never lie or kill in guise, and so as warriors we cannot hold our heads high for our work this day. Yet these men were twisted and vile. They murdered for gold, they slew children, burned homes, raped, stole, and they believed that these actions gave right to take the daughters of their victims as brides, against their will, against all common laws of man. They deserved this fate, and if we were to bring them that fate which they deserved, we could only follow the path which we walked. Go to the hall of the Ceallach, and bring to him word of what happened here today. Feast and be merry, for vile men shall harm no more. I shall go into these woods to pray and give thanks for our victory, and beg forgiveness for the deceptions which we did make. They parted from him, marking his words well, and no cheer went from their lips. Ceallach led them to the hall of the Ceallach as Aethelwald went into the wilds to give his thanks truly alone. He found the stump of an oak, which after many years of life did perish in some great storm, and there he knelt to pray. Earnest was his thanks that none of his own were wounded, that those who had dealt such grievous wounds to the world of men were brought to just ends, and also he prayed for forgiveness, that he did lie and cheat men, slaying them through false promise. Long he did remain there, offering thanks and begging forgiveness, until he felt that he had given true account of his misdeeds and settled his heart. He stood just as the sun began its crimson death, and set his feet on the path to his rest. As he walked he saw a hind just as his hunger woke, and in his mind he saw the great favor he would earn with his men and the Ceallach of the wee Agla if he brought to the feast this prize. He began to stalk this prey, but for all his skill and patience it discovered him, or else by some unheard call was summoned, running through the forest with all haste. Aethelwald pursued, for never before had he seen such an action from a beast. By his skill he kept pace with it, and so observed as all the forest began to join together, as though of one will. First a hart of great size, taller at the shoulder than any man, came charging from behind him, but it did not harm him, running alongside the hind with matching swiftness. Then came another, and then 3 more, each keeping tremendous speed that Aethelwald struggled to keep pace through the leagues of old forest. More did come, yet paid no heed to him. A herd uncountable leapt beneath the unchanging twilight sky. Aethelwald kept pace as the leagues passed. His speed did not flag or fail, but grew greater as the hunt continued. And though for hours they did run, he felt still the strength in his muscles as they ran under the unsetting sun. 10 leagues did pass, and the herd grew seemingly to number all which lived in Eoland, Aethelwald among them unnoticed, as light flies began to take flight, living stars whose dance was as 1,000 comets. The deer slowed to a trot and then to a walk, forming a procession of great dignity. But Aethelwald continued to run, the power in his limbs more pleasing than that of mead. Up the line he went, swift as the winds, past countless deer, further leagues until at last he saw the figure which led the procession and held all beasts captive. She was slender, as the birch is slender, tall, as the oak is tall, gentle as winter's first snowfall is gentle, light as only spring days are light, powerful as summer rains are powerful, graceful as autumn's falling leaves are graceful. She was the sun and the moon and all the stars of heaven, lightness and darkness, water and fire. She was all creation placed into one vessel, and as she walked the grasses flared to full green though it was dusk. Flowers and vines burst forth from the earth and grew to full maturity, and the deer behind her walked with their heads bent low as supplicants before a king. Aethelwald froze as he ran, falling to his knees where he watched her, captivated as all other creatures. At the sound of his fall she turned, startled by the noise, and discovered the intruder. But seeing him she did not turn to run. To him the world froze. The light flies disappeared into the night as the sun moved again and night fell. The stars emerged, but she returned his gaze. Long they remained there, with no thought for time nor need of sustenance, other than the sight of the other, as light and dark ruled with equal measure the skies. Beyond the other the world ceased, and neither wind nor rain they marked. She was all the earth to him, and for her he was the warm blood of man, the sinew of her people which she had lost long ago. They shared a single heartbeat, a single mind, a single desire. How perfect was the other, how pleasing, how little is the waking world against the ocean of that other. Endlessly they gazed upon each other, delighting in every moment, every detail which the eyes could offer. And there they would have remained until the ending of time, had they been undisturbed. The sharp crack of broken sticks rent through the air, and the deer scattered. She took one terrified look at him, and vanished as the wind, the deer running after her. Aethelwald rose sluggishly, for he still lived in that dream, fumbling for his weapons. Into the clearing came Ceallach, who at the sight of Aethelwald fell to his knees and wept, pulling him into tight embrace. Aethelwald was still waking, and Ceallach took him from that place, and spoke to him. I understand that the weight of your actions lies heavy on your mind, but your pain is not one which you are fated to carry all your life, for you have never done that which is evil, only that which is necessary for your people. I have done things, terrible things, which are not right by any standard of man, and if my home was so threatened I would have done all I could to save them. No matter cost. You have spared many lives from the ravages of war. Far less blood was shed by your cleverness. You are not forsaken by your actions. As I look upon you, I see you have been fasting these last 30 days since you departed us, walking so many miles in the quest of penitence. Do not waste yourself in your guilt. Take care of your body, even if your mind be ravaged by guilt, for it will preserve you. Aethelwald, you will need your wits about you, for in the time from when you left us many things have happened on the isle. The army of the Daona did flee to their ships. How quickly they turned to cowards without their chiefs, and the wee Arden are set free of them, yet squabble over who shall be their Ceallach. Your men are safe in the hall of the Ceallach Rollalach, but with each passing day he grows displeased with us, for he cannot refuse us hospitality when we did so much for him, but we have eaten much. More of his rage, I think, comes from your disappearance, for he has decided to give you his daughter as a bride, and your absence to him seems a refusal. He grows bitter against you for this. I have searched for you 29 days, returning to the hall as I struggled to find you. We face troubles, but fear not, for I am with you. All will be solved under your direction. It was many leagues to the hall of the Ceallach, from where Ceallach found his ward, and their journey took 3 days, during which Aethelwald recovered his strength and woke from his long dream, and with the direction of Ceallach planned for those troubles which faced his warband and all Ilulean. Yet he told him not that he would not wed the daughter of the Ceallach, for his heart was resolved to discover what truth there was to his dream and the nature of her. Yet unknown to him she was with him, following closely behind the pair, eager for every glimpse she could steal of Aethelwald, and at night she would watch over them, granting from her power deep sleep for both. She followed them to the hall of the Ceallach, eager to learn more of them. And away, on craggy mountain tops, dark tendrils of smoke pulled back into the body where for 3 years they labored. The powerful song of Dain had stopped the internal machines of all who heard it, but the curse still lay upon the dead, and the many tortured vessels which suffered inside labored to repair their vessel. Darkness pulled from the mountainsides, back into the body where it had so long lived. Storm clouds gathered, crows burst into frenzied song, and the hunter walked once more in the land of the living. End. Book 6. The Ring of Dain Thar Duin was written and performed by Michael Frutig. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting the project on Patreon. Supporters get text files of each chapter, as well as access to Q&A posts, other writing projects, such as flash fiction and chapters of other works. Go to patreon.com/michaelfrutig for more. patreon.com/MICHAELFRUTIG. Thank you.